Am I unreasonable for being annoyed my date asked to split the bill? So last night I had a first date with a guy the first met on an app. He chose a fancy wine bar for us to go to and also chose the wine. He also wanted to get a few snacks to share, so we did. And he pretty much chose those too. It was a really lovely evening. The conversation was great and we really got on. However, when it came to getting the bill, he suggested we split it. Now I really don't expect people to pay for me. And don't think that men should pay for everything at all. But the bill was almost £70 for a bottle of wine and some snacks. There's no way I would have ordered such an expensive bottle of wine, and was annoyed that he'd chosen it without checking if that was okay if he expected to go halves. It was also very clear that he earned a lot more than me. I did have a nice time but would never have chosen such an expensive place. And definitely wouldn't expect someone else to pay so much. I can't quite work out whether it's reasonable to be so annoyed. Edit. He did tell me about a time he overcharged his roommates so he could pay less rent. Edit 2. And I'm currently not working due to illness, so I have very little money. Not that he's aware of that. He told me about a time he overcharged his roommates so he could pay less rent. That right there tells you everything you need to know about the type of man he is. He's a cheap ass, and it gives you insight what the future holds if you continue seeing him. I say pass. He chose the venue and ordered for you guys. Pretty tacky for him to not pick up the tab. The fact he chose the fancy place without taking into consideration your financial situation. I would say he should have paid. He is most likely cheap as hell but tries to hide it. For me, expectations imply some prior knowledge, or in the absence of that, communication. In other words, he chose a more expensive venue in order. If his expectation was that you should split the bill, he should either know your situation or at least ask whether or not you were comfortable with his expectations. The other side of the coin is that if he told you the venue, you could have communicated your concerns, offered an alternative. You are not unreasonable. I wish it was standard to establish beforehand that everyone pays their consumption. Things like this take the fun out of dating. If he chooses everything without your input, I would expect him to pay. Not because he makes more, but because he chose things that are hard for most people to afford. Just don't see him again. I don't think you're unreasonable for being annoyed. However, you could have brought this up sooner. If he was like, I'm taking you to this wine place, you could have been like, oh, I can't afford that. Then either he'd be like, that's okay, I can pay. Or he'd say, what place do you want to go to? Always assume you're going to split and let them say otherwise if not. But you were good going to the expensive place when you thought he was covering the entire thing. It's only a problem when he asked to split it. Also, if you're that ill and not making much, you shouldn't be dating. Wait, was it 70 for both of you or 70 in total? I understand your frustrations, but if it was 70 in total, then that's only 35 for each of you, and that doesn't seem too unreasonable, no? I don't care where the person wants to meet. I always assume I will be paying half the bill and plan accordingly. If you felt the place was too expensive, you should have suggested something else. Yeah, we as women have to get away from expecting men to pay the check. I'm not defending him ordering everything and making the decisions. I see why you're annoyed, to be honest, but it still remains that you probably should have expected to pay half. Just my opinion. If he picked the expensive things, he should have paid. Full stop. Why are you dating if you're unemployed and have very little money? How do you plan to contribute during dates? Honestly, get your health and finances sorted before dating. Unpopular opinion, totally okay to split the bill. Equality. You could have said no to the fancy restaurant, but you didn't and hoped he would pay. Also, you did eat the food and consumed the wine. You didn't said no to that either. So yes, you are unreasonable for being annoyed. It's reasonable to be annoyed because he picked an expensive place and all the food if it carry a normal restaurant and you picked your own food. It wouldn't be. It sounds like he wanted to have an expensive night out and split the cost. Bragging about ripping off his roommates is a red flag that he uses others for money and has no scruples about it. By splitting the bill, I understand that everyone pays for what they ordered. Now, I really don't expect people to pay for me, and don't think that men should pay for everything at all. But the bill was almost £70 for a bottle of wine and some snacks. If you don't expect this, then you should be okay with someone asking you to pay half. In fact, even before the date, you can help decide where to go. If it's out of your budget, then suggest another place. We often went out with a group of friends and always split the bill evenly amongst us. This one time my girlfriend and I were low on cash and wanted to go Dutch. Suddenly one of our friends decided to change his order from the most expensive steak to a salad. Some people love to live large when it's not out of their own pocket, or for the price of a salad. He could have paid, as a courtesy, and that would have been fair. However, I have a hard time understanding your attitude. You seem to complain that you went to an expensive place and drank expensive wine thinking it would be free. But finally you were asked to pay what you consumed. If I am not misreading and that is in fact what you're saying, that sounds absolutely ridiculous to me. If something is more expensive than what you're willing to pay, then, I don't know, don't do it. I would pay my one too, but I wouldn't even entertain a second date. I've never once split a bill with a date where it turned into a healthy, happy relationship. I'm more than happy to take turns taking each other out picking up checks. But any other way is not my thing. Since he proposed to meet in an expensive wine bar, did you tell him outright that you are not able to afford that place? If not, it's your fault. Even if the guy is cheap, sob based on your edit one. I paid for my date last night but was pleased my date wanted to split it. I was trying to be romantic. If you cannot pay your own half, you should not be going on a date. If his choice is too blue for your blood, you should suggest something within your price range. $70 for a drinks and food sounds perfectly reasonable for a night out and not very expensive. You are in Europe, so I assume no tipping, so your half is only $35. He wanted to be the guy choosing every detail without any of the responsibility. I think I would have refused to pay half. I'm so sorry he did this. You're mad because you had to pay $35 for yourself? When you are going out in a date, expect to pay something. Regardless if you are a woman or a man. I'm tired of seeing women post dating advice stories when men ask them to split the bill. I don't care what the guy ordered. Take that up with him. If you expect to get free dinners all the time, quit going on dates. And I'm currently not working due to illness, so I have very little money. Not that he's aware of that. Based on this information, yes, you're being quite unreasonable. I expect a 33-year-old to be financially stable. If the bill was $70, then your half would have been $35. Is that a lot to you? Well, this is a clear case of clarifying expectations beforehand. He should have made it clear it's Dutch and you should have asked, are we doing Dutch? Emo, both are in the wrong here.